Right. Hi, everyone.
Hello, hello.
Thank you for coming. First off, I want to say a big thank you to Foundation for having us. They are literally our biggest supporters, and they're wonderful. So yeah, please, round of applause for them. But yeah, if you don't know who we are, which I feel like most of you do, I'm Ethan, and this is Flora.
Hello. We are Fivefold. Fivefold was set up kind of to provide spaces and events for young artists to kind of like show their work, and also just to kind of offer a space for people to like come together and like connect with each other, I guess, in a space that is outside of nightlife, but kind of equally inspired by nightlife. So yeah, that's kind of like what we're going to be talking about a little bit today.
Yeah, kind of that intersection. And we needed to have some guests. And so we have the wonderful Ollie and Elif with us, who we feel like have an experience of both like in working as artists and in their interactions with nightlife that would be really useful and helpful in talking about this. So do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
I'm Elif Gonen. I'm a director and a photographer. I worked with Fivefold before in an exhibition. We did an exhibition on rituals, which was lovely. And yeah, we've been friends since.
I'm Ollie Tikare. I'm a photographer and an organizer, DJ and a writer. An artist with different outputs, really. But yeah, mostly a photographer. And I work on sort of race and community with my photography and street photography. I've been doing an ongoing work about Lagos, which I'm working on bringing out later in this year. And my club night's called Don't Touch My Fro, which I curate the lineups of and make the posters and put them out around London. So it's just, I've got a wide practice, but it's difficult to sort of condense it into a nice little synopsis sometimes.
Yeah, and I guess like one question that we have for you guys is kind of like, how did you end up where you are now doing what you're doing? If you could give us a little rundown.
I grew up in Turkey in a conservative city and came to the realization that I need to move out to be able to live the life that I wanted to. So I decided to come to London for university, and during pandemic, I did this like micro short, just me and my camera, about couples who quarantine together. Uploaded that to Instagram, and a commissioner found it and wanted me to do a music video with a similar aesthetic. And from that on, I just started directing and been directing and taking pictures since.
I was always the photographer amongst my friends growing up. I just sort of always took a camera around with me. And I just felt like I had an affinity to capture these moments of, candid moments between friends and stuff. So, and then I got into it at GCSE, did photography at GCSE, and started using the darkroom a bit. And then got into analog photography and was like, whoa, this is so cool. And there was a period actually where I was just still, just buying disposable cameras before I got into analog photography, and thinking just keep buying the disposable ones. And then the teacher was like, you could just buy a camera and just change the film, so I didn't have to. I was like, oh shit, okay. And then after that, I didn't do it at university. I did philosophy and politics at university, but I kept photographing, and it was quite a nice environment to be in. And I lobbied the photography department, the fine art department, to let me use the darkroom, basically. So the guy was pestering him, just let me use the darkroom. So I had 3 years of taking pictures casually, but just using the darkroom alongside my degree. And then I did a master's in photography, documentary photography, and then that was blending my sort of academic philosophy and stuff with a more creative practice. And then since then I've sort of worked in freelance photography and doing that. And the DJing's been something that sort of came about while at uni, and then I've poured my heart into that on the side, sort of thing. Yeah.
And what about you?
What about me? I mean, in terms of working in the arts, I did a geography degree. I mean, I was always a dancer growing up, so I guess that was kind of my creative outlet. And then went to uni, did a geography degree. But when I was doing it, I kind of really was attracted to researching and studying things that were to do with art and to do with art, both as a practice, but also as a social life. And then when I finished uni, I was like, what do I do? End up working in TV. And then it was kind of, that was similar time to when me and Flora set up Fivefold. And then, which was lovely because I don't think I would have had the confidence to do it by myself. But it was a great outlet because I could take the stuff that I'd learned, you know, the social theory, the kind of looking at the way people interact and why creativity is important, and channel that into doing that. And then I've always written, but like, I guess I used to write mostly essays. And then since then, I've just kind of turned that skill to other things, doing some journalism. Me and Ollie wrote a piece for The Guardian on Glastonbury last year together, which was fun. Yeah, just doing bits like that, and it's just kind of all spiraled out of that.
On to me?
On to you.
I think in a similar way to like Ollie, I started with like the camera, just like being the photographer like of the friendship group, and just like documenting everyone around me that I love. And then
Sometimes people hate when you take pictures and then
know.
they ask for them after as well, don't they?
Like the next day they'll be like, "Where is it?" Yeah, give it a week. But yeah, I think it all started like with photography and kind of like trying to capture some of those moments. A lot of them kind of being on those like nights out. And yeah, I think that just slowly progressed into me wanting to like tell more behind like the stories in the photographs. So yeah, I think like photography is where I started, and then I've studied film. And then while I was like doing my degree, I think I kind of struggled with the fact that you just don't really get that much industry exposure when you're there. So I was just like trying to hustle as much as possible really to like find connections and like make work outside of that. And I think like part of that is also like why Fivefold is important, because it's kind of like providing the things that we might have wanted when we were like studying that we just didn't have.
And the stuff we want now, it's also quite selfish, I
Yeah.
think. Like in a nice way, but we get a lot out of it as well.
Definitely. And I think also just like seeing the value of like the creative connections you have around you, and like seeing that you can just kind of put people together in a room and they will just want to make something together. Yeah.
Yeah. I think going back onto the nightlife point, because obviously you two both, you know, you said you took photos, a lot of your friends, and I do think that is a really common thing, right? So like, what were your first experiences of going out? Because I feel like, and this is what we're gonna come on to you, because obviously we grew up in similar areas at the same time, so I feel like our experiences will be quite similar. But I want to know like what do you think of when you think about your first experiences of going out?
My dad's here, but I had we like doctored our passports, which is like so terrible.
No, fraud is bad, guys.
Yeah. And we also like managed to like find someone had access to like the dark web and like ordered us like fake IDs. So we were like 16, and it just meant that like as soon as those arrived, we were just out there. I remember going to this place called Dirties in Soho.
Yep. At the borderline.
Yeah, and I vividly remember someone getting clocked for their passport, and it was not good. She got her passport taken away. So that's like a vivid memory that I have. But I think, yeah, now they have like the scanners, so it's just, you can't get away with the same type of thing you used to when you were young. Like, it's not going to run.
Yeah. I think the thing that always has stood out to me the most about like being that age is the fact that like everyone was out. Like you'd go somewhere and you literally would have like, you'd know honestly 50 people. I don't know what they thought was happening, because they were like 16-year-olds like who all knew each other in the same club. But that was what was actually really nice, is you would just go out and you'd be like, you're going to just see everyone there. And I mean, I feel like it's probably similar growing up anywhere, but I think growing up in London, there's definitely your range of people you can access is quite big. So that was cool, and I think it meant that like you made friendships, or you maintained friendships with people that you maybe wouldn't have otherwise, because you could all be in the same space.
Definitely. What about you guys? Like, what is like a vivid memory that comes to mind when you were like first going out as a teenager?
I feel like the way I used to go out was so different, because it would be, I don't know, you'd meet in a big group, you'd all go on a bus, and like you'd maybe like make this horrible drink concoction and drink it on the bus, and then go to clubs that were pretty bad actually. Like not that the DJing wasn't the sort of the reason you were there, you know. just to be
space.
out and drink. But there's something nice about that as well. I remember going to Piccadilly Institute quite a bit. Do you remember that place?
That's literally the worst club ever.
It's
I think that's actually the worst. It's embarrassing and it's really gross.
What would they play? Like, what kind of music?
It's like 4 floors.
Yeah, like 4 floors, everything's neon. Like,
Yeah.
if I tried to tell you what music they played, I wouldn't be able to remember because it wasn't that memorable. That was one end, but I think the other end is also quite funny because sometimes it was like bad in the sense that it was like the walls were peeling. Sometimes it was even quite scary. Like me and Flora had a conversation about this, but we used to go to this place called Visions a lot. And
Got visions.
yeah, but it was amazing, but it probably wasn't a place you should be as a 16 or 17-year-old. And there used to be a point in the night where we'd all kind of be like, we should go now. We should go now. But it was a massive learning experience, right? How to comport yourself. You had to talk to like really, really random people who were probably like 50. And yeah, but it was so exciting and like it really allowed you to like flex a skill that you didn't necessarily have like as a teenager.
Yeah, and I think as well it was an interesting space because you would come in and then you would see like an artist there that you've like been listening to, but then you'd also see other 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds. Like there was this kind of like a scale that was like sliding. Like you just never knew who you were gonna see, and I think that's like an exciting thing. I feel like sometimes like you go to venues now and it's like you know the crowd that you're expecting, like you know who it is you're gonna see there.
I think as well, like when I was, just starting going out, I think I enjoyed the fact that there were these venues that I just pulled up to, as in like you weren't like checking, oh, this is an event or what's going on, who's playing here. You just sort of, I missed that element of going out when I was younger, of just not really caring about all of that stuff and just rocking up.
Yeah, spontaneity.
Yeah.
I mean, Elif, does this match at all with your experience of growing up in Turkey?
I was going to say, I feel like I had a very different experience going out in London compared to you guys as well, because I obviously did not know what is good and like what clubs to go to, anything like that. And I was craving to find a community for myself. So I was obviously trying to go to queer clubs, and I was in heaven like 4 nights a week. I was there every single day. But I think going out in London kind of gave me that sense of belonging in that sense. And it was my first year. So I was really happy to be able to find a place like that, because it just did not exist in Turkey, especially in my city. But yeah, I think since then, the kind of places I went obviously changed. I don't go to heaven anymore. But I am still going out to find like-minded people. That's always the goal of going out for me, and like to socialize with people that I can collaborate with, or just to like release that energy.
Can you remind me what year you moved here?
Sorry?
Remind me what year you moved here.
What year? 2018, I think.
Yeah, so it's been a long time. Because have you felt like London has changed? Like the nightlife scene in London has changed a lot since you moved?
100%. Yeah, I think it's mostly to do with cost of living crisis, because when I first moved, like even the rent was so different, and it's like kind of like a domino effect. Like the venues can't afford rent anymore, and the exploitation taxes going up, and it resulting in ticket prices going up and the drink prices going up, and people can't afford to go out. So even in that sense, it has changed, and yeah, we are more like leading individualistic lives, I feel like, and losing that kind of community space that was more prominent in the decades before,
Yeah, definitely. I feel like as well, like post-COVID, because if you came here in like 2018, you must have kind of experienced what London was like before that, and then even after COVID, so many venues have like closed down. So many of the ones that like were places you could frequent, you could go, like we were talking about earlier, like on the high street, places that weren't really that great, but they kind of provided a space where you could like meet together, congregate, maybe go somewhere else after. And I was going to ask you, Ollie, like with your night, how did that kind of like come into play with you kind of deciding to do that, or was it just kind of for the love of the music?
Yeah, so I've been running parties for 2 years now, and I was taking part in in a night called Lagos to London at this venue, Paper Dress Vintage, and I thought, okay, I'd like to actually expand it and do my own night now. And I think it was never going to be like a profit mission, you know.
Like fivefold as well.
Yeah, it's not going to be. It's not going to make us rich by any means. But also, I think, I like to party. I'm a bit of a raver sometimes, and that was sort of like the inspiration for the party. I wanted to put on a party that I would want to attend, you know. And like sometimes, if you're just going to sacrifice that element to create a situation that's just driven by profit, you're probably not going to want to go, you know. You can't. Maybe you can have both, but it's difficult. It's like I was aware that in order to really make any money out of an event, scale is your friend, really. So which is why you're seeing small venues close down and things like that. If you just look at the margins, which is what we do now with the DJs, actually, is that just try and send a spreadsheet over, because it's like, look, this is the budget. We want to do some decor. We want to make a cool poster. We want to pay the DJs fairly, but also we don't want to overcharge people. So we try and cap the tickets at £16. So it's still like people are buying a ticket and not like walking in being like, I've just spent £25 for this. This better damn be good, There's just a bit less pressure, So it's like, but we can make enough to reinvest the night, and but for me personally, it wasn't going to be a main money maker, unless someone wants to give us some money. But like the night itself, you know what I mean? But maybe it's different for some people who are looking at nightlife in a way that they want to make a living out of running parties. I've never thought of myself as wanting to make a living out of running parties. It'd be nice for us to not lose money, but I'm not, so it depends on people's, the big promoters who are booking big DJs and putting them on at Fold every weekend, that kind of thing. It's a completely different mentality, when you're doing a party more as a sort of labor of love, and it's pretty thankless sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, sustainability has been the Influencer's Word of the Year. And I think it applies to so many things, but I think across all of this stuff, it is a big thing. Like, what is sustainability in nightlife? Like, what is a sustainable way to run a venue or to run a night? I think it's been a pinch on both sides, though, because it's like both. It's got more expensive for the venues. Obviously, that cost gets passed on to people. And I think you mentioned about like spontaneity before, and I think that's a big thing that's maybe been lost. Is that like life takes a lot of planning now. Do you know what I mean? Like, people want to go on like a big night out. Maybe they go on like one every other month. Some people.
But I mean, this is what's also interesting is that the trend is potentially also to do with the fact that people's lifestyles are just changing as well. So it's like there's one thing talking about sort of decline in nightlife, but there's also a thing of like, well, you have to actually want to go as well. And some people just don't want to go, and that's. I'm also trying to work out, is it just to do with these pressures as well, or is it just that people maybe just don't want to go to clubs? Do you know what I mean? I
do know what you mean. Yeah. I do think, though, like, okay, I might be biased, but I just think there is an inherent value in socializing, and I think that if people don't see that, that's because they've been led to see something else. Like, no. There's no, like, I think it's kind of like an irrefutable fact that we're living in a like ever more atomized society, right? I think that you add the economic pressures, you add the social pressures. COVID did a number on loads of people. Like, I have so many friends who were like so normal before and now are just like not the same. I won't mention who.
They don't want to go outside anymore.
No, but genuinely, people don't want to go outside anymore.
No, they don't.
They want to be in bed by like 12 and then get up at 7 and do some yoga. I don't know. It's just more like planning ahead again.
Well, you were telling me about this article that.
Oh yeah, I read an article the other day.
Yeah.
Some columnist in the Guardian was saying how Gen Z have like 30% rise in gym memberships, and she was making the comparison to like how this is a sort of emblem for the fact we're living in a more atomized society, because people are more individualistic. They want to better themselves on this rise and grind thing, and it's something that it isn't that communal. It's very sort of I thought it was a decent take, actually.
But I think that's also because like wellness, the way that it's sort of like centered is that I guess like dancing, going out isn't really like within that, and I feel like actually going out is actually really good for you because it's just like you are connecting with each other in that place at that time. And like dancing as well, just the power of it has such a big impact on you. So yeah, I think it's something to do with this like idea of...
It does, and like, the clubs are spaces, or bars, whatever, those spaces, like, they're like breeding grounds for ideas as well, you know. Lots of things will be thought up in a weird smoking area, you know, at 5 a.m. And to sort of not respect that as a vehicle for creativity is, you know, quite ignorant, I think. You know.
Yeah, because maybe actually both of you can tell us a bit more about how, like, nightlife, or like where you go, where you hang out, actually affects the work you make in both directions. Like, you know, how are they mutually influencing each other?
I started taking pictures in gigs as well, like just going out. I think that's the easiest way to get into photography or in kind of like creative practice. I would say going out plays into my music more conceptually than literally, because obviously when we go out, we are looking for that human connection. That's the whole point. And there's like a ritual behind it. You get ready together, you come together beforehand, and the whole point is to socialize and to connect with people. And I'm kind of trying to portray those kind of human connections within each other. But I think, yeah, those human connections is what we were talking about, like leading more individualistic lives right now. That is what is shaping the culture. It's not actually just about going out, it's how we socialize with each other. And I think that plays into both of my work, and I just find it interesting to observe, really, when I go out.
Can we talk about the lesbian renaissance?
Yeah,
please.
we can.
No, because I think it's really interesting, because I think this is really, people are like aware that there are like is an increased amount of like spaces for queer women, like flinter spaces. But this like rise in the culture is really being driven by things like bars and things like nights. You know, like I want your take.
Yeah, there is definitely a queer renaissance, and I think it's to do with the pandemic as well, as you said, because people had time to just sit with their thoughts in their houses and came to realizations. I think that is the main thing, and I think people are just getting bored of doing the same things, going to the same places. There's just demand for it. There's more queer people. We are less scared of being open and out. Therefore, there's more spaces. I work in one of them as well, in a lesbian bar. And yeah, it was completely community funded also. Like, there was so much funding that went into it that made it possible. Yeah.
For context, Elif works at La Caminera, but it's the only Flinter-owned lesbian bar in London, which is, I still find mad. Like, that fact runs around my head a lot. Like, the other main lesbian bar is owned by a man. And I do think it's like an important point to make, even just to talk about like who creates spaces and like what comes out of them, this small venue thing. Because I mean, like, okay, so Ollie, for example, would you ever want to run a venue? You know, would you ever see like?
Yeah, actually.
Okay.
It's definitely a dream. I think Ben and I have it's a pipe. Maybe it's a pipe dream, but one day I think I would love to run a venue. I'd love to have a space in London. I think I would have a vision to put something together that was quite holistic and well-rounded, and it would need some serious thought. But I think I know enough people that I think are interesting and creative, and would know what to bring to a space that I would love to run a venue. But you know, I understand it's difficult. And we actually went up to Newcastle recently to go to this club, Cobalt Studios. And if you're ever in Newcastle, I really recommend this club. It's like one of my new favorite clubs in the country, actually. And it's run by a family, and the stepdad is the sort of designer and sort of works on all of the aspects of the interior space, and the mum runs the bookings, and the kids DJ in the space, and the sound engineer as well. It's very cool. And I was talking to them about the difficulties of and you know, their people are so passionate about it and live for it. And I was, you know, we kind of got humbled and I sort of like, oh, okay, maybe it will be pretty difficult, to be fair. But it's certainly an intention. Yeah, I would like to do it. Yeah.
Do you know what you would want it to be like? If there was no like bounds, how would you want
I think
it to
like
be?
what I am sort of envisioning is like a space. I really like going to. I really like Unfold, and I really like how they curate things. and how they've got this sort of vision with a party.
For those that don't know, tell us a little bit about
Okay,
Unfold.
it's a club in Canning Town, and it's most people probably know it in the room, but for those who don't, they run techno parties primarily, but it's one of the only clubs that really has a vision with its creative direction. Same with Ormside as well, but they know what they're doing. They have a sound. They want to push it. They have creative direction. There's art direction coming behind it. The artwork is all tight. I think there aren't as enough clubs in London that are doing that for like house music. Like no one's really pushing like that sound in a cool packaged way, in my opinion. And I think like that's the sort of thing that I would want to bring to London. I think there's like a space there for it. But it would cost a lot. And I'd want to do it well, There's a club in Amsterdam called Doka. And this is a sort of model that I would love to bring to London. It's a very cool club. It's kind of like a listening bar in the day. Very nice interiors, good sound system, hi-fi, everything. And then they run club nights at night. And it's like they know what they're doing. I think that's, that would be my vision anyway.
It just makes me think like, basically there's this club in New York called Nowadays that me and Ethan went to, which is like a queer club. Yeah. And they have this rule, like when you go in on the dance floor, I'm pretty sure they taped our phone up. Like they put tape over our phone, like the cameras.
Oh, they don't only tape your phone. They literally like pull you into effectively like a holding pen. And like, it is really good, but some like gender non-specific person just like talks at you for like 10 minutes. But it's really
rules.
But there's rules. There's rules. There's loads of rules. And like often, I don't know. I don't love rules, but in this case, I actually really loved the rules.
They were really good. It was like, and there was also like someone on the dance floor, like standing aside, and they were there for like if someone felt uncomfortable, which I guess is like quite a big step, kind of like to kind of safeguard the crowd. But I think overall, like we had such an amazing night there. Also, we shared one double, and it literally lasted us the whole night. Like it was crazy.
Free pouring is legal in America, so it's dangerous business.
It was wild. But it makes me think, like, definitely the thing about like smartphones, because I saw someone do a take on View from a Bridge, and he was talking about like iPhones being on the dance floor, how everyone has this kind of like fear of being like captured and like videoed, and like I just was wondering like what you guys think about that, because I do think it inhibits certain people. It keeps them feeling like they kind of like have to, I don't know, not be themselves. So I was wondering what you guys think. The impact
no
of that
phones on the dance floor, ideally. If you have to send a text, then fine. If you have to make a short video, then fine. But like long videos, no. There's dance floor etiquette. I feel it's not a good vibe for there's loads of screens and you know what I mean. It's just I definitely but I understand why people want to take videos and capture things, and also like I think it's good, like as you say, it's a really nice way of getting involved in photography when you're taking it. But there's a big I feel people react differently to like if you have a camera and a little point and shoot camera to say than like if you use your phone. Do you not find that? Like,
for sure.
The interaction with people is so different. That'd be my. What do you think?
I definitely agree. I'm in favor of like bringing back that offline space that we had in our lives. I feel like we don't have an offline space anymore because it's always in our pockets. And that is what I meant by like we are losing that third space of that is not your home or your workspace. That's like your third space that you're supposed to socialize and interact with people. That physical space is moving more into online. So I'm definitely in favor of not bringing your phones or interacting with it less when you're out.
Okay, we had a debate the other day about members clubs, because I think they're interesting, like conceptually, and maybe because I feel like we've spoken a lot about like partying, which is like it's a big part of socializing, but also I understand that like not everyone likes that. Some people don't like dancing, some people don't want to be sober, like whatever, like all these sorts of things. But I've been to Set Social quite a few times this year, and I actually just really like it. Like, I find Soho House like terrible. Not that it's actually for creatives anymore, and it has been for a really long time. But do you think there's something about membership, like as a concept, that, like when it's applied to spaces like social spaces, that has a positive thing? Because I feel like when I said that, you were a bit like,
I think it's just like the idea that you have to like pay a fee and that's rolling, and I think for me it like loses some of the spontaneity that we're talking about. But I think the security of it, or the idea of the security of it, is important, because I think, as we were saying, like it's important for people to feel like they can go to somewhere and frequent it and be there, like, and come back and see familiar faces, and then next thing you know, you're making a film together. Next thing you know, you're shooting with each other. So I do think there's like value in them. I think it's more just like the fact that I don't want to resign myself to thinking, oh, that's the solution, if that makes sense. Like, because what does that say really about nightlife? I mean, just like London culture. But I think there is value in it.
I think there's definitely value in it, to an extent. But you know, some of those early sort of loft type New York disco parties that existed, a lot of their success was on the basis of, you know, curating the crowd and being quite selective. And I think that is a way of maintaining a community and a dynamic that's more sacred. So I do think there's value in it if it's done well. I think like the Soho House model obviously is very different because it's just predicated on who's got the cash now, really. But I think you know, having a sort of curated, selected membership to something that's a community, that you have to sort of abide by these kind of values. So I know that if I walk into that space, I'm going to be with people who are like this or whatever. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, you know.
Because yeah, I guess we very much like curate the artists we work with, but we never curate the people that attend the things that we do. But in terms of the curation, can you talk about how you do your posters for Don't Touch My Throat? Because I actually think this is a really interesting like method of very like gently perhaps curating people.
Yeah, a bit. I think so, because I do, you know, a photographer. I thought it'd be fun to sort of combine photography with the art direction of the posters for the night, and I didn't think that many events were doing it that much in terms of like, you know, it's a bit extra really, like doing a photo shoot for a club night. But it's mostly with first ones we did was with Micah, who I met. He used to come see me DJ, and then he just had this really cool look. You know, looked like he's from a different era, always like decked out in sort of rude boy clothes, and then had a little two-step. And we became friends, and then I asked him to be on the poster. So we did this shoot for the poster, and that sort of.
It looks sick. It looks so good.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
And that kind of led to okay, we can do this again. So, but then I would sort of see people out and about and be like, oh, they look good on the poster. So it meant that sort of every event, it sort of either been friends or people I've met at the event, and then asked them to do a photo shoot. No one's really doing it for money, because it's just a bit of, you know, because also I quite like working with, it's quite fun working with people who aren't models sometimes, you know, because it means that like, you know, this is a sort of do a shoot and they're like a bit scared about, are you going to make me look good? But then somehow, most of the time, we get at least one that makes them look pretty good. Yeah, it's been a fun thing. I look forward to seeing how many we can do.
You got to like one day have like a big archive, put them all up on the wall. That'd be sick.
The one we've done this time, which we're going to put out next week, actually. I'm excited to put that one out because it's sexy, it's funky. It'll be fun. I look forward to you seeing that one.
Ollie's missing out a key element of this, which is that they're all black people.
They're all black people. Yeah, they are.
But
yeah. In terms of the night, yeah, it's like, the thing is this is what's interesting about the night in general, is that like a lot of people that come to the night are still white. But I personally didn't want to create, I wanted to like the art direction to speak that. I wanted the DJs to speak that. So we tend to book black DJs. Actually, we've pretty much only booked black DJs. But I didn't want like gender politics or identity politics to be like embedded into the night, like on the front label. You know what I mean? It's just like I'm trying to like create this space where instead of it being like we've booked an all black lineup, it's just like you turn up, all the DJs are black, and you're like, oh, you know what I mean? It's just like all the DJs are black. It's not like something, you know. Does that make sense? Yeah. It's the same with, you know, all female lineups. I'd love to book an all female lineup and it not be like I'm booking it. You know what I mean? It's just like they're DJs. They're DJs, you know, and they're black. Okay, but they're DJ, you know. So but I feel like we wanted to, with disco in general, with the posters, we wanted to give like a sort of modern refresh on what is fundamentally like the roots of, you know, disco music. I feel like is the roots of most of sort of cool electronic music culture now, you know, especially with the partying and everything. So, but it kind of has a cheesy look these days, you know. If you go to a disco party in London, it's like, ooh, you know.
No. I see what you mean.
Do you know
I
what
just think
mean?
it's so
it's
nice.
Like nostalgic. It's nostalgic. You know, you go and it's not like cool. And that, you know, and because late disco was so cheesy, and there was so much of it, that, you know, a lot of it just doesn't get played. Like all this sort of stuff they were playing, Paradise Garage and Larry Levan was playing. You don't hear that at the disco. You go to a disco right now, you just hear Aretha Franklin and Marvin Gaye, who are great, but, you know, there's more. And so, yeah, I think that we're trying to sort of give it this look of like, oh, okay, that looks pretty cool. You know?
Yeah, well, I guess you're showing people what they're going to get if they come.
Yeah, a bit, which is important because the last night we actually did more techno. So it's like, cause ultimately, I want it to be, you know, built up from that disco philosophy. But I'm intrigued about exploring different forms of the Afro-diasporic soundscape, you know, which sometimes means techno, sometimes that could mean, you know, house, that could mean disco. But, you know, different. I don't want to be bound to that. It's more about like when I talk about disco so much, it's more about the philosophy behind the party and the scene at the time, rather than simply the sound.
Elif, I was just thinking, like, as we were talking about third spaces just a few minutes ago, before we came here, you were like talking about how you were doing like a treatment, you were working on a treatment when you're at the bar. And I just thought that was like quite a beautiful thing that you were just like working on that in between kind of like serving drinks. And then you've got kind of like your colleagues helping you. Can you just talk a bit about like the environment of the bar and like how that kind of like feels, what it's like? Yeah, but it just sounds like a very supportive environment.
Yeah, I think about this quite often, to be honest, that the fact that like I'm gonna work in this place for a amount of time, which is why I cherish it a lot, because all of my colleagues are lovely and they're all creatives and everyone is doing a different kind of medium of art, and it kind of all plays into each other. Like one of us will have an exhibition, the others will come. Like it's very sportive, and it just opens up like a very interesting, like it's so niche because it's in like London and it's like lesbian and queer, and I don't know, I feel like we sometimes forget what kind of like a bubble we live in. Like lots of ideas kind of come from these kind of spaces, then kind of broadens up to the general public, if that makes sense. Just even talking about gender, I have noticed like in London, I talk about gender and queerness and all of these kind of different politics so much more than I'm in Istanbul. Yeah, it's a lovely place to work in. And
why do you think that is?
I actually have no clue. I have no clue. I think it's maybe because we can talk about it. It's more of a topic. But yeah, I feel like it always feeds me emotionally and just like intellectually, and I love working there. Yeah.
Another thing that you were just like talking about before we came here is like the kind of culture in Istanbul, and you were saying that comparatively, like they are actually very similar. Like, what is it like? Like, what is the nightlife like over there? And like, just in general, like, how are the creative spaces just on a day-to-day level? Like, yeah, how is that in comparison? I know you're saying they're similar, but obviously, yeah.
I tell people you need to come to Istanbul to be able to understand the energy, what I mean. It's really hard to put into words, but when I first moved, obviously I was so young and I was not from Istanbul, I was from another city called Bursa. And
what's the nightlife like there? Like,
there's
did you
nothing.
go out?
There's
no.
nothing. There's
Really?
like some bars, but it's so bad.
Was there one that you would like go to or like?
No.
No?
There was like one Irish pub that I used to go to with my friends. Yeah.
So rogue.
There's an Irish pub in every place in the entire planet.
It seems so.
That was the only thing that we would go to. Other than that, it was mostly house parties. But yeah, in Istanbul, it's like I wasn't aware what kind of both nightlife-wise or like queer spaces, you need to kind of know someone to be able to go into those places. Like it's much more underground, in my opinion. But now I go back more often and I meet more people, more artists, and they're bringing me to these spaces, which makes me understand like it is exactly like London. Even the friendship circles like really reminds me of my friendship circles here, but it's just Turkish, or like it's weird. It's really hard to put into words. I will definitely recommend everyone to go to Istanbul. Yeah. It's like comparable, but it just has a different energy, I feel like.
Because actually, we have this conversation quite often. But like nightlife is obviously a really good way to kind of get a little look into other cultures. You know, I think like most of the time you go to a new city, you go to a new country, you want to go out. Like the first thing you want to do is like go to a bar and just like observe. Any good stories? What's people's favorite places?
I also think talking about Istanbul's nightlife, like obviously it brings people together and it opens, especially talking about queerness. We have lots of venues that are closing down right now because of the like different law reasons, and they don't want queer spaces to exist. But I found it almost like messier compared to London, and it just feels like a bit more real because in order to be there, you need to like take into consideration some things, like even just existing openly as a queer person, and that is kind of one of the reasons why like nightclubs or just like venues are important for people. That will be just like one example, if that makes sense.
Just to answer like what you were just thinking about, I went to Berlin once, and I think you were there as well. And there was a party under a motorway bridge, like in like the middle of nowhere. Yeah. And I just thought that was like a very beautiful moment because I was just like, that would not happen in London. Like you're not going to be under the M25. Like it's not something that we have access to.
Well, not anymore. Yeah. Probably happened quite a bit in the 90s.
At one point, yeah. Like during like the acid house kind of movement. But yeah, I think that was only like 2 years ago, and I was just like, it felt very surreal to me as a Londoner, like being under this bridge in the middle of nowhere, like, and everyone's just going for it, and it's broad daylight, and I'm like going to the airport anyway. It was a whole thing, but it was a like wonderful memory. But yeah, what about you guys? Like, is there anything that comes to mind like that was like a standout moment, standout night for you?
Well, I went clubbing. I went to this club night in Lagos, DJ'd there in December, which was quite interesting. That was probably the most, in terms of like cultural, like surprise I've had. Just because, you know, most of the clubs in Lagos are very sort of bougie vibes in terms of, you know, people want to go to pop bottles and, you know, the people dancing on the podiums and that kind of thing. Everyone's got their table. This is more the vibe, I would say. But then there is a kind of burgeoning house music scene, electronic music scene that's happening at the moment there. And I was lucky enough to play at this party. It's called Sweat It Out. And it was
love that title.
Yeah. And it was an amazing party actually, especially because of, you know, it's extremely homophobic in Nigeria, and you know this is a you know, it's a queer space, and people are also like really going for it, you know. And normally I feel like in like when you go to the other clubs there, you know, they're not interested in, you know, dancing together, you know. It's like you go separately and you sit at your table, you maybe see someone else at the bar, but it's kind of like you're going to link up with your friends. So it was really nice to see that there was an appetite for this kind of dancing as well. I mean, you know, people dressed, you know, such cool style, and it was an underground scene that I was thinking, wow, like this is cool, this is happening.
This is where it's at.
This is where it's at. This is where it's at. Yeah, for me personally, it's to my taste, you know. And I brought my friend Tosin actually, because, you know, he grew up in Lagos and he hadn't been to this, and I was playing and I was with him in the green, and he's like, hey, how are you taking me to this party? Which I was quite happy about, because, you know, he'd normally be taking me around, you know. So it was nice, so I could actually,
showing him the ropes.
I could show him a side of it that like he probably wouldn't have gone to it if I wasn't there. So yeah, that was cool. Yeah.
Did you manage to get a good idea of like what kind of people were there, like what they did in the rest of their lives?
No, I feel like that's not really. I feel like it was all sorts. There was a lot of gay men who, you know, I was taking. I didn't speak to that many people though. Weirdly, I was chatting to the organisers quite a bit, but I didn't get into like the midst of talking about what people did and stuff. I feel like I photographed quite a lot of people. I thought that was kind of interesting in itself because there was something a bit more raw about it, just simply because I'm sure a lot of the people there wouldn't present in the way they were presenting in any other context than in this very space, you know, and that was different, I suppose, to like going out in Hackney, you know. You know, it's like you can kind of walk around as you will in Hackney. So that was, it felt like there was more of an energy. There was like this, like real, like we're coming to give it, you know, which was really cool to experience, yeah.
It sounds like as well, like I think sometimes when you're just in those kind of spaces and you're just letting loose, there is like that sense of mystique. It's like we don't need to talk about everyday lives. We don't need to talk about like what we're working on. And like there's a magic to that I think is important.
I mean, I remember there was a time when I was talking to this randomer at in the smoking area in Bergheim Panorama Bar, and you know, it's this white kind of older German fella. I'm having a cigarette with him, and he's like, "So Ollie, what is it like being a black man in Germany?" And I was like, "Nah, man.
Not today.
Not at this time, you know. It's like, let's just talk about some chilled stuff, you know, and go back to the dance floor, you know." It's so funny. That's like not the time, you know.
But for some people, that is the time.
No,
which
it
is
wasn't.
No.
It's just like, you know what I mean? It's just like, it's so funny about some of that German earnestness sometimes, because it's just very well-meaning, but I was just like, no.
No, the earnestness thing I think is actually an interesting thing to talk about, because as well, I don't know, I feel like maybe some people have lost like faith in like nightlife, and that people see like if it's good, that means it's sceney, and so it's not fun and stuff. And I do think there was like a really like, it's funny. I met a woman recently who's just moved to Belgium to work on for Horse Festival, and she was just describing it to me like how they work it. I think it's probably happening next week maybe. But what is really amazing is, and this is a, luckily for them, it's just an effect of where the location they're in is they're kind of able to have like a semi-permanent space. So the festival happens once a year, but then
What
now
do you say it's called? Horse Festival?
Horse Festival.
Yeah.
But they're able to like program so much stuff around it. And so actually like it's not just like a music offering, it becomes like a community building thing, because they have so many volunteers, they have so many interns, they like, and because it's in Europe and this is not anyone's fault other than our governments, but like we can't just move freely. It means that they have people coming from like all across Europe to come and work for like a month, 2 months, 3 months as they prep. They do all this stuff. They have loads of artists involved. So it's become beyond just being like a music festival, and it's like known for being a really good one. It's also become a real like incubator for people making art. And I would like love to see something like that like happen in the UK, because I feel like it is that, like, it all is done in such good faith. Like, people going like, yeah, of course it's going to be like cool people or whatever, but it's like actually is really, really open and really like welcoming, and like it's more than just like the party. It's also the entire thing around it. For like really like tries to feed that element of community and that element of like connection that I guess we've been kind of talking about.
Yeah, so like kind of the festival programming in itself like is involving the community and like
and it just exists beyond just the week or the weekend or whatever. It lasts for months.
Because I guess like some of the bigger festivals like Glastonbury, like they do kind of have that sort of like feel where they're getting people involved from, you know, various groups come in and then they kind of take over. But I feel like when it's something at such larger scale, it's kind of hard to actually integrate everyone together. So yeah, that sounds amazing. I gotta go to a horse festival.
Yeah, I do think with things like Glastonbury, I mean, we're going again this year, touch wood. But it is such a big beast. Like, I think scale again, we're coming back to the same thing of, you know, do you think you can have things at that huge scale, like massive clubs, massive festivals that have that kind of like community spirit or that kind of like creative potential?
I'm for bring back IKEA to the drum sheds vibe. You know, I don't. I don't think that venues of that size, you know, specifically like club venues, I just think you're not going to get a sense of community when you're with 10,000 people, you know. It's just like...
It's a bit of an impossible task, perhaps.
It's just not going to happen, you know. I do think like I'm not against like quite big clubs though, you know, like I'm sure like Paradise Garage, I'm pretty sure that would be like 800,000 people venue. I feel like it can be done, but the idea of like the mega venue, I'm kind of anti-mega venue. I don't know what you think. Yeah.
I don't really mind them just in from a visual standpoint. I feel like there's something really interesting seeing that many people enjoying the same thing, if that makes sense. But in terms of like feeling like you're in the community, it obviously it's not the same. But I went to Manchester Warehouse Project, and that was a massive venue, and they were having like an exhibition about the rave culture and the history of
like
UK.
in the space.
In the space.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
it was amazing, and they were like cars that were hanging from the ceilings. It was like very what's the right word? Like interactive, and I personally loved that. And there was thousands of people in that. Didn't necessarily felt like I was in the community, but it was definitely an experience.
Like it was like properly thought through. Like
Yeah, I think that's more so about the programmers and like whoever's putting on the night, if like how well they think about it, because you can make like 3,000 people enjoy the same thing, and maybe that will feel like a community as well if it was done right. I just never been to a space that was done right in that to that scale.
Ethan, I was gonna ask you. Basically, you wrote this essay a few years ago, and I think it was kind of like about the power of the dance, but like that's me kind of summarizing it. But it was like, it was such an amazing piece of writing, and you were kind of like talking about the way in which we come together on the dance floor, and I was just wondering if you could just like talk a little bit about that and like, yeah, kind of the inspirations versus like your own experiences.
Yeah. Oh, so this is something I wrote when I was at uni. And I was doing a module on non-representational theory, which is it's quite complicated, but it's a philosophy, I suppose, that's come out of phenomenology, and it kind of looks at feeling as a concept and divides it into affect and emotion. Affect being this interpersonal, pre-discursive, some people argue precognitive encounter that happens between human and non-human bodies, and emotion being the way that we describe affect, right? So we can all talk about our emotions, but there's a level higher to it. And, you know, as I said before, like I was kind of like wanting to tailor my research to stuff that I found interesting. And I don't know why I landed on nightlife, but then I read this book by a guy called Ben Malbon. It's called Clubbing. And he kind of, the book looks over the course of a night and divides it into sections and talks about kind of the effective encounters that one might have at each stage of that. And it's funny that you spoke about pre-drinks, actually. Because basically in this essay, I was trying to somewhat narratively like look at what the like emotional life of a night out is. And things like pre-drinks are really interesting because they're not just a process of like actually physically gathering to like go to somewhere. They're also kind of an emotional aligning of like, you know, when you come together, people like, and for practical reasons as well, you know, it's, I've got a few friends here, but we always laugh when we go out with Ollie because we can always find our friend because he's very tall. But that sort of thing of like your experience of knowing where you exist in a room, knowing like how you want to have your night, and then it kind of, the principle looks at also like the experience of physically being in a room with music, you know, like what does it do to your body to be moving rhythmically, to be experiencing kind of the physical vibrations of speakers, like of a subwoofer. What does it smell like? What is it, you know, what's the consistency of the air, the humidity, like all these sorts of things. And it was really interesting because it made me really think about going out and dancing as not frivolous, but like actually a really quite like serious experience, like a really serious like experiential moment. And I'm sure if anyone is a neurochemist or whatever, they can describe this better than me. But also like the kind of like the endocrine aspects, the kind of like hormones that are released when you're in space with people when you're moving. And, you know, as we know, like, people are really sad at the moment. People have been sad since COVID. And people, I think it felt really unproductive. And I think that there's, like, a feeling of stagnance. Like, that is, I think, is a big thing that kind of sits over all of this. Like, why people don't want to go out, why things don't work long term, why people don't feel motivated, why, like, all these sort of things. I think, I think, like, that kind of essay was just... And I think that's why I'm so in favor of people going out, and I think people should go out forever. Like, until you literally can't, even if you can't stand up, like, I don't know, I'll will you in. I'll jiggle the chair or whatever.
You have more energy than most people, though, Ethan.
But this is okay. I actually believe that no, unless there's a medical reason, I believe that, like, people have an infinite amount of energy. It's just about, like, how you do things. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. No, but genuinely, like, go in the right size group, go to the right size club, like, take enough breaks, don't drink too much, drink water, don't wear the wrong clothes, don't wear uncomfortable shoes. Like, these are also, like, all these sorts of things, you know, you can, you know.
Ground rules.
Yeah, you can tailor your night to you can have a good time. Or, like, maybe you don't want to go to a club, maybe you want to go to a bar. Like, I went to Marseille over the New Year, and it's like, Marseille's not known for being a clubbing place. But I had such a good time, like, in the bars. And, like, my French is okay. But I was with my friend and their sisters friends, and everyone was speaking in French. I had to just kind of, like, speak French. And it was so fun for, like, a different reason. Because I couldn't just, like, yap in the way that you usually would, where you have all the same references as people, and you can just kind of, like, I don't know, do some, like, linguistic trickery and, like, seem like you're interesting, even if you have absolutely nothing to say. I had to actually be like, am I interesting? And I was like, maybe. But I had so much fun. I was like, this is like a really great exercise for my brain. And I like really I met people who, and I had to tell people about stuff, and I was like, oh, like, you have no point of reference, and vice versa. And it's like, I had such an amazing conversation, and that wasn't a party, but it was still like, it was just sat like in like the freezing cold outside, because like no one has any space, like no bars have space inside, and just being like sat in this huge crowd of people that you just would like meet someone be like, oh, this is this person, yeah. But yeah, the experience of it is experiential.
So how do you think we do get people to kind of like come out more? Like, what is it that we need to be doing? What do you think, Ollie?
I feel like the main point is like the price of things. I think, you know, there is like, I do think a lot of people are thinking, oh, I don't want to attend that because it's just the actual overall cost of it is going to be too much. But I think promoters can be more kind. I think in terms of certain nights, I do see, I'm like, that is wild, you know, like, and I think because I feel like I do the planning for certain nights, and I kind of have a feel about how much certain people will cost to book. I feel like sometimes the promoters kind of are trying to get as much as possible out of the night, which I get it if you're running a business, but it does mean that, you know, it's quite inaccessible. So I think, I don't know, maybe you can offer like a scheme where like, you know, you offer a certain amount of discount tickets. I don't see enough people doing that, you know, I think like, and like also maybe offer like a discount ticket that sometimes people don't want to plan like 5 weeks in advance to go to a night and have to spend like £5 on the early bird, and then by the time it gets to the Friday of night before, like it's like £35 for a ticket. Like that's going to turn a lot of people off, you know. So I do think there's certain things that can be done, like, you know, on a sort of now practical level, but obviously like this, the problem is wider. But I do think that, like, you know, there is also, we say this about like people aren't going out, but there's quite a burgeoning scene in London at the moment, you know, and there's lots of new parties that I see, and there's a real big appetite for it as well. It's for a lot of people. It's an exciting time. Yeah. So I feel like, you know, when you look at the reports or whatever, there was like a report that came out about the state of nightlife in the UK recently, and like
it's always so negative.
It's
as well.
but it is like the wide. That's what I was saying before we started this. It's like the main venue, the main club that's getting hit mostly by people not going out is like the high street club in like small towns more so. Like those are like, that's getting hit. Like London it's not great, but there are still, you know, the carpet shop only opened like a year and a half ago, and it's like packed every weekend, you know, and like you know, venue MOT, all this, like that's only been open 10, 15 years. Like it's still going, like there's still cause for like, oh, there's clearly an appetite. So I think there needs to be some clever thinking business end as well, and maybe like adapt to the times. Like maybe like the club model needs to change. Of like, okay, we're only going to be open in the night. On the weekends, 3 days a week, maybe that model needs to fundamentally change, across all venues, and you need to look at more multi-purpose spaces that you can use for different things. And you know what I mean? I think there needs to be a sense as well amongst this whole industry that there needs to be evolution as well, and potentially habits are changing fundamentally. So how are we going to combat that? But I understand the climate isn't good, but I think people need to think about solutions rather than, you know what I mean? Like, yeah.
No, I completely agree. I also think that more people need to take it upon themselves to like make the spaces.
Yeah, exactly. Elijah speaks about this quite well, actually. Yeah.
I think like in a time when people are apprehensive or nervous or disinclined to go out, I think it's always people are much more likely to want to engage with something if like it's run by someone that they're a bit more proximate to. Mm-hmm. I think that does your friend or your friend's friend throwing a night, like doing anything does really kind of like give a little bit of, I don't know, bit of oomph. Just it feels like a slight guarantee, and also it means that I think you probably end up with a more diverse like offering of stuff, and because people know like what their friends would want to see, and even if it's like you do like 3 times a year to do like a night, I think that would be. I mean, like we've got we always have people come. We know who's going to come to stuff that we do, because we've like built that community like out of our already existing. One, it's just like growing from there. So I think, more people doing stuff would help.
100%. I think this was saying, Elijah was saying how, people just expect to like turn up to a club and it's just good, but they forget that part of what makes it good is their own participation, So there is like, everyone needs to play a part in creating a scene. Scenes don't just happen, So obviously that's hard to think about in terms of the individual, but it needs to be done, like anything that you can do, I don't really want to go to that, but maybe I'll show up, because if I show up, maybe someone else, you know what I mean? There's like a bit of an element of that needs to be implemented, I feel.
Definitely. And I think as well, like multi-purpose spaces, like, I mean, me and you have like loosely spoken about what a permanent place might look like in the future, but
terrifying to me.
But like maybe some of that is like, I don't know, co-ownership, where it's like, it becomes the dance floor at night, someone runs that side of things, and then in the day, you have people coming in and out where they can just kind of like chat, create, work together. I think that idea definitely, like, I don't know, kind of collaborating resources to try and like keep these kind of spaces or open these spaces.
100%. Elif, do you want the last word?
I was going to ask you actually, how do you think house parties plays into this conversation? Because you were mentioning scenes. I think that's the in the core of it, it's about culture and like nightclubs and like multi-purpose places are kind of can be the same of like house parties, because that is where you meet other people as well. I personally prefer house parties, if anything. What do you think?
I'll make this really brief because we do have to wrap up. But I think that house parties are, if not dead, they're like on their last legs. And but it won't be fixed until we sort out the housing issue. Like I actually think it's just a space issue. I think nobody wants 50 people crammed into their tiny flat. No. So I think when people can get houses again, like it's like honestly, when we sort that out, then I think they'll come back. Yeah. Right. We have to wrap up.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you
to you both.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Thank you to Foundation again. But yeah, also, we always like love to get input from people. So if anyone has any ideas about stuff or like,
hit us up.
Yeah, hit everyone up. Our Instagram is 5__fold. You can find Ollie and Elif through that. But yeah, thanks Foundation. Thank you to Tate.
Thank you.
Yeah, have a lovely rest of your day.